Hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm 17. And I'm kind of in need of a bit of advice about what I should do to get my boyfriend back after I lied to him and he found out about it. When Paul and I started dating a year ago, I knew he was the one right when I saw him for the very first time. I felt something weird, like my stomach squeezed and then started to jump inside me. I guess it was what they call love at first sight. However, our relationship was not totally ideal. I mean, we fought almost every day, mostly for really stupid reasons, like when he suddenly decided to play a joke on me and I would get hysterical because I was not in the mood. Or when I noticed him staring at another girl and got angry at him. Common reasons for fighting in virtually any love couple, right? The main thing was that we always made up despite the circumstances. Until one day. It was a Saturday morning, and I was at home getting ready to meet with Paul. As usual, we always spent our weekends together, either somewhere outside or at his place. So he would come to pick me up anyway. And I thought that I had at least an hour to get ready, but he came early and started to try to get me to hurry up. So I said something mean to him, and he said something offensive back to me. And we started yelling at each other until he suddenly said that he was tired of me and that he was breaking up with me. And then he just left, slamming the door on his way out. At first, I was so angry at him that I didn't really care if he was going to come back or not. Then, after some time passed, I sent him an emoji text, but he didn't respond. I decided to call him to tell him what a jerk he was, but he sent me to voicemail. I spent the rest of the day in a totally irritated mood because, above all, everybody at my house kept asking why Paul wasn't taking me out as usual. Anyway, Paul didn't call me either that day or the next one, so that I began thinking that this time it wasn't just a regular fight, and that he was serious about leaving me. What can I say? It was painful. I was really suffering, and it was even physically hard for me to be myself without Paul. I didn't want to see anybody, and I didn't even want to eat anything, so much so that my mom started worrying about me a lot. I was just sitting in my room all alone and looking through our photos of when we were together and so happy. I made a decision that he was the one I needed to be with and that I had to get him back no matter what it took. I couldn't come up with anything better than good old blackmailing, so I sent Paul a text saying that I had missed my period. Of course, his reaction was immediate, just like I predicted. He called me back and started asking about whether I was totally sure or not, and did I already take a pregnancy test and other stuff like that. I pretended that I was totally scared of expecting a baby from someone who had dumped me. That made him promise that he'd never leave me or our baby, and so on. Okay, I know that it's impossible to build a healthy relationship based on lies, but what other option did I have, given that Paul had been ignoring me for almost the whole week? So I bought that pregnancy test and made sure that it would show the result I needed. You'd be surprised at how many useful tips there are on the internet. I took a photo of it and sent it to Paul, which actually made him promise to come over later. I was excited, anticipating this meeting. I was just so happy that I could finally see him and hug him. So I decided to primp a bit and went to the bathroom, but when I got back to my room, I found my stupid little brother there holding that pregnancy. At first, I started yelling at him for entering my room and snooping around in my stuff, although it was far from the first time he had done it. And it was only then that I understood that he was now thinking that I was pregnant. Of course, he immediately promised to tell our parents about this, which was obviously not good for me. Right at that moment, I heard a car parking out in our driveway, which could mean that Paul had already arrived to talk to me, and I just panicked. I mean, I was actually planning to fake a pregnancy in front of him, but I'd prefer that others not know about that at all. I figured out that the only way to solve this problem with my 13-year-old brother, I told Kevin the truth, that it was just a joke, and that nobody was pregnant or was going to be pregnant, and that it was just a mean prank for me to get back at Paul. I wasn't expecting that Kevin would understand this or support me just like that. That's why I had to ask him what I could do for him to shut up about it. And when I saw that cunning look in his eyes, I understood that this was the beginning of the end. Yes, I had gotten on the hook with my own little brother. And while I was blackmailing Paul, Kevin was blackmailing me. I was doing Kevin's written schoolwork for him. I totally set him free from any household duties and was doing them for him. I even shared my pocket money in a 60-40 split. And guess who got the biggest part? And you should have seen Kevin's happy and satisfied face whenever he would ask me to do something for him, and he knew that I had no chance to tell him no. But I had Paul next to me in return. He was really gentle with me, like he never was before, and so attentive. He brought me different tasty things because I told him that they were good to help me with my morning sickness, and he texted me like thousands of times a day saying that he loved me and cared about me and the baby. I knew this wouldn't last for long because eventually I either had to really get pregnant, which was no good for me, or tell Paul that something awful happened and I lost our baby, I just wanted to have a little more time to enjoy all of this attention. 2 weeks had passed since everything started, when Paul brought up that he was thinking about the two of us getting married. He said it was the only solution for us anyway, and that we should start preparing until my tummy gets really big, which is why he insisted on us getting together with both sets of parents to tell them everything, while I kept finding more and more excuses to not do this. At last, I came to the conclusion that I could no longer pretend to be pregnant and said to Paul that I wasn't feeling well and that I had to go to the doctor, who supposedly said that I was no longer pregnant. Paul was so desperate. You should have seen his reaction. It was as if my miscarriage was his fault. He cursed himself about making me nervous and blamed himself for not having insisted on a talk with our parents and so on. I kept telling him that everything was okay, that things like this sometimes happen, and that the main thing was that we were together, and so on. I was sure that this calmed him down and that from now on we were going to be happy. But I was wrong. You see, when I told Kevin that I was free from my fake pregnancy and hence off the hook, it made him really angry. Of course, during these weeks, he had gotten used to his pampered life, and he apparently didn't want to do all of his duties on his own any longer. But since he no longer had any evidence of my lies, and I no longer needed him to keep silent, I thought he could go and tell our parents whatever he wanted, and I would simply say that he had just lost his mind. But I guess I didn't take into account that Paul was still vulnerable to this kind of information. And one day he simply came to my house and showed me a text that he received from Kevin where he actually told him the truth. I desperately tried to deny everything, but I must not have been as good at bluffing as I thought I was. We started a pretty intense and pretty loud fight, so that even my mom, who was in the backyard, heard us and rushed to figure out what was going on. You can be sure that it didn't take long for Kevin to reveal the whole truth. Of course, Paul walked away and told me that he no longer wanted to see me or hear from me. Mom gave me the harshest reprimand that she's ever given me for what I had done, even mentioning that she was totally on Paul's side in this conflict and that if she were me, she'd never even try to contact him again. Jeez, why can nobody understand me, even my own mom? I felt really offended by that, and I was so angry that things had turned out the way they had. I was sure that if Mom would have at least just punished Kevin for entering my room without permission, that stupid jerk would never have found that fake test and my plan would have worked out perfectly. Ugh. And, of course, I cried a lot that night because of Paul. After all this was started so that we could be together again. Now it turned out that everything had become even worse than it was. Apparently, I was so nervous that I spent the whole next morning in the bathroom because I was very sick. My morning sickness didn't end, though, even 3 days later. I thought I might have had food poisoning or something like that because I couldn't force myself to eat anything and felt terribly sick even after a simple glance at food. Mom got really worried and decided to take me to the hospital for an exam. After the test results came, I started laughing hysterically because I fully understood my bad luck. I knew that I was pregnant. It's been a couple of days since then. My dad's not talking to me because apparently he thought that I was still his little girl, and now it turns out that I was already a grown-up woman. And my mom says that after all I had done to Paul earlier, it's no surprise that he didn't believe me now. To be honest, I don't blame him either. Now I'm hoping for your likes on my story. Feel free to share it with your friends. Maybe that'll help me be able to beg Paul for forgiveness.